Hello and welcome to this week's video. My name is Anuska Taylor. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're not new to my channel, welcome. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and feel free to leave me a comment, like, share, and ask me questions. I love to engage with you. So thank you so much for those of you that do leave comments and questions. I really do appreciate it. Now, before I get into today's topic, I just want to share an invite for next week that I have just for next week only. So it's World Voice Day on Tuesday, the 16th of April. And I wanted to offer something special for that. So this offer is only available next week. And what I'm offering are 2.5-hour private masterclasses with me online. So you can be anywhere in the world to help you elevate your vocal delivery. Now, normally, if you work with me, it's an 8-month investment. So it's a longer investment of time and finances. So this is perhaps you've got an upcoming presentation, pitch, meeting, keynote that you're feeling a little bit anxious about and you don't have 8 months to wait. This, I can give you some very immediate help, guidance, support, technically with your voice, functionally with your voice, and also in terms of accessing more expression and creativity with your voice as well. Now, because of my Jungian psychology kind of coaching hat as well, I will also help you to understand emotionally why you might be putting some brakes on your voice. Not that we're going to resolve everything in 2.5 hours, but we're kind of planting seeds. So you can go away and let that sort of percolate in the background. And I promise you, it will just start to make such a huge difference. When you really understand what's actually driving your voice, it's easier for you to create change. So if you are interested in this, I have only a limited number of spots left. The link is below. If you want to book, you do need to schedule quickly, make the payment when you make the booking, and you will not regret it. So if you've got an important speaking engagement coming up in the next sort of few weeks, I highly recommend booking one of those sessions. So let's get on to today's topic. Now, I have talked about this before, but it still keeps coming up when I am talking to prospective private clients, when I'm out in the world talking to people about what I do. So I thought maybe I just need to talk about this again, and that's okay. I'm happy to talk about things, bring in some new ideas as well. So I want to talk about this idea of the difference between a voice coach and a public speaking coach, what you can expect from each of them, and when you might need one over the other. It is a semantic minefield, 100%. I get confused sometimes, and I look at my peers and I'm like, well, I know we do the same thing, but you've given yourself a completely different title. So it can be very confusing. So I really want to simplify this for you so that you know exactly what it is that you can expect, and therefore what questions to ask, and also what you think you really need support with, because you may not need a voice coach, you might need a public speaking coach, or vice versa. So let's start with public speaking coaches first, because people really do feel that we're the same thing, and we're not. It sounds silly, but public speaking coaches, which you also might know as public speaking trainers, presentation skills trainers, communication skills coaches, trainers, generally don't really do anything with the voice. It's very, very surface. So they might give you some general guidance. You need to articulate more. You need to project the back of the room more. You need to breathe deeper, but there's no real understanding of the voice. So that's kind of as far as it will go. And it's very well-meaning advice and help, but there's no real understanding of the function of the voice and how you personally can maximize, enhance, and optimize your voice. But what they will give you is a real understanding and skill in developing your presentation. So presentation skills, storytelling, body language, audience engagement, those types of things, which are very, very important. But your voice is the vehicle, the primary vehicle for your expression. So it almost doesn't matter what your hands are doing, what your eyes are doing. If your voice isn't really coming out, if your voice is being pulled back into your throat, or you're shouting and yelling to get your voice out, It really doesn't matter. It starts with the voice. So if you feel like your voice isn't really functioning very well, i.e., it doesn't feel good, you run out of breath, it feels strained, it feels pushed, it feels forced, or conversely, it feels like you're pulling your sound back, it's mumbled, it's muffled, you speak fast, you run out of breath, all of that, then working with a public speaking coach, in my experience, is not going to help solve that problem. You need to work with a voice coach. So let's talk about voice coaches then for a second, which obviously is my world. And even within my world, I look at my peers and my friends and I'm like, we've got totally different titles, but I know we do the same thing on a very sort of fundamental level. So voice coaches could be voice teachers, voice trainers, speaker coach, which is kind of what I call myself on LinkedIn, is a speaker coach, voice technician. One of my friends is called a voice function expert. We're all basically doing the same thing, which is we help people maximize, optimize, and enhance their voice, because we have a lot of deep training and understanding in how the voice functions, in how to optimally produce sound. Now, in a lot of the cases with the people I'm talking about and myself, we come from a singing background, but then we have extended our expertise into the world of speech. So we have a real profound understanding of how the voice works. So you come to me with, for example, really common pulling the sound back, pulling the vocal energy into your throat, and I can really help you get your voice out of your throat and forward and out without you feeling like you've got to strain and reach and yell or rely on a mic, which is another common example for people that haven't really done any training. And it's like, well, if I just use a mic, I don't need to do the training, which is not true, because the mic's just going to amplify the quality of the sound that you put in. So, but that's a whole other topic, and I've done a video on that actually. But I think what's really important to kind of understand is you want to work with someone that's an expert in what they do versus a jack of all trades who's a kind of master of none. So, I think it can seem on the surface very easy to teach voice, because we all have a voice, we all use our voice, and it's like, well, I'll just get people to talk to the back of the room, and yeah, to some extent you might elicit some change. But the actual real fundamental change happens when you work with someone that really understands what they're hearing and how to actually help you get the most from your voice, because not all exercises work for everyone. And also it's more in the application of the exercise than the exercise or tool in itself, which is why often more people will come to me and say they've been reading a book by Roger Love, for example, very famous voice coach in the US. That's great, but not all the exercises in his book are going to work for everyone. But also, it's actually more about how you're doing the exercise than the exercise. And I've talked about this a lot. So you want to work with an expert, because actually there is so much to learn just about your voice alone, that if you're working with someone that's trying to cover everything, you're going to find it's very, very surface. And what I hear from people all the time is they'll go on presentation or public speaking skills workshops, but nothing really changes with their voice. It's just very surface advice. And that's okay, because that's all they can give in that scenario. So you've got to really, first of all, work out, is my voice really functioning freely, openly, powerfully, and expressively? And if it's not, then you want to address your voice first and then go to the public speaking. So of course, in the world of voice coaching or public speaking coaching, we're going to be also individually as coaches bringing our own unique skills to the table. Now, from my perspective, it's also the psychology of the voice that I bring. And so often what happens with clients that I work with is because we're working on the voice in such a deep way, from a sort of unconscious perspective, like what is your voice unconsciously really revealing, that they find that they don't need the public speaking skills training, because now they're just more authentically showing up, versus being sort of trained in what to do with their hands and their eyes and their legs. It's very much, okay, I'm now just in my power. I'm now speaking from a more authentic place, and my body just kind of follows. I don't really have to try and manipulate anything anymore. So I think that's really important as well. So I'm not saying we're all the same, but I'm saying fundamentally, if you're working with a voice coach, they're highly skilled and trained in the voice. If you're working with a public speaking coach, they're usually highly trained and skilled in presentation skills more broadly, crafting a story, storytelling, in audience engagement, how to deal with an audience, those types of things, which are all really important. So the question is, what do you actually need? And maybe one of the only ways to know that is to like video yourself presenting, and then you'll see, okay, well, actually, I'm actually quite comfortable talking in front of an audience. It's just my voice isn't really expressing myself fully. You know, either people can't really hear me unless I have a mic, or I'm just shouting at people. But either way, I'm not actually really connecting. I'm not engaging with people. So that's what I think is really important. Now, from my own experience, I have been having voice lessons since I was 10, so a couple of years. And I got to a point about 10 years ago where I started doing professional shows. And by professional shows, I mean, I hired a theatre, I hired a band, like a full band setup, and I sold tickets to my shows. And the very first show I did, I sold out. This was when I was living in Melbourne in Australia. And I came to realize that I had, you know, enormous amounts of expertise and skill with my voice. But when it came to performing, I was just terrified. I mean, I cannot tell you how terrified I was at the thought of fronting a show and singing for 2 hours. I was fine with the voice bit. If you'd have just stuck me behind a curtain and I could have just sung, I would have been absolutely fine with that. But the thought of standing in front of an audience and having to address them and talk to them and perform absolutely terrified me. Even though I really trusted my voice, I knew I could sing. I knew I could sing everything I wanted to sing. So I worked with a performance coach. And very much like what I'm saying here, I mean, this was more in the musical space. But he didn't have any real expertise in the voice. That wasn't why I was working with him. But what he did help me with was how to own my presence, my power on stage, how to own my voice on stage. He wasn't doing any voice training with me whatsoever. In fact, his background was in the trumpet, I think. I think he was originally a trumpet or trombone player, and then was actually teaching performance at Melbourne University. And I worked with him privately for about 3 months, I believe. It was a while ago, 10 years ago. And it completely transformed how I showed up on stage. So again, I just want to show you the difference. So here's someone myself with a lot of experience with my voice, but terrified at the thought of performing, which sounds kind of crazy. So because people think if you can sing, then you must be okay with performing, but it's not always the way. So I wanted to give you that example from my own life, because he was absolutely brilliant. He really helped me center, find my own energy, and allow my voice out in a way that I would have been too terrified to allow out before. And it really changed everything for me. And so he would be where I put under the kind of public speaking coach umbrella, the performance kind of coach. So they're not going to help you with your voice, but that's not what you're paying them for. And to be honest, he had enough to work on with me without dealing with my voice. So a byproduct of it, of course, was my voice came out even more. And this was also before I started really studying Jungian psychology. So that had a huge impact on my voice as well. So I just wanted to give you that example from my own life so you can see the difference and work out what you need. And it might be that you need the voice coach first, and then you move into the public speaking space. Or depending on the kind of voice coach you work with, someone like myself, you might find that you just really start to own your power, because I'm approaching it in a much deeper way. So if this has resonated with you, as I say, I've got this special invite for next week only. Or if you're interested in working with me over the longer 8-month period, the Speak with Impact private voice coaching program, you can book a consult below. You can book a one-off Reclaim Your Voice coaching session below. And both of those are credited towards the full coaching package if you decide to move forward and work with me. But either way, you will get enormous value from either of those sessions. So thank you so much. I hope that really helped you. Any questions, comments, please leave them below. And if you want to ask me anything privately, you can also send me a message through my website. So thank you so much. I'll see you next week.